begins with a quiet calendar notification, a number, a date. For some, it's a beacon of joy, a reason for confetti and gathered voices. But for you, it might just be Tuesday. You wake up, you brew your coffee, you maybe glance at the well wishes piling up on a screen, and you carry on. You tell your friends, "Oh, I don't really do birthdays." You assure your family, it's just another day, really, and you almost believe it. This isn't a performance of humility or a badge of mature indifference. This is something far more complex, a deeply woven tapestry of emotional history, self-protection, and a quiet redefinition of what it means to be seen. Beneath the calm surface of "it's just another day" runs an undercurrent of unspoken psychology. It's a language spoken not in words, but in shrugged shoulders and deflected attention. To the outside world, it can be misinterpreted as coldness, a lack of spirit, or even ingratitude. But the truth is, the person who treats their birthday as normal is often the most emotionally attuned in the room, someone who has learned to navigate the delicate balance between the longing for connection and the fear of disappointment. This is not about the absence of feeling, it's about the management of it. It's a sophisticated psychological maneuver, born from a place where excitement once met a void, where anticipation led to a quiet letdown, and where the brain, in its brilliant adaptive wisdom, decided to lower the stakes to zero. This is the psychology of the uncelebrated celebration. It's the story of how a heart learns to protect itself by pretending it doesn't want the very thing it was designed to crave: recognition. We are going to pull back the layers of that calm exterior. We will journey into the quiet grief of forgotten expectations, the strategic control of emotional investment, and the profound introspection that a single calendar date can trigger. This is for anyone who has ever felt a strange hollowness on their birthday, who has scrolled through messages feeling more detached than delighted, or who has insisted they don't care while secretly taking a mental tally of who remembered. This is about the space between the person you were, the child who counted down the days with glittering eyes, and the person you are now, the adult who has learned that the safest way to handle a milestone is to pretend it isn't one. Because the birthday, stripped of its cake and decorations, is far more than a marker of age. It is an emotional mirror. It reflects back to you your relationship with attention, your comfort with vulnerability, and your deepest, often unarticulated beliefs about your own worth. When someone chooses to walk past that mirror without looking, it's not because they are afraid of what they'll see. It's often because they've already looked, and the reflection is too complex, too laden with the ghosts of birthdays past and the anxieties of futures imagined, to be processed in a single day of forced festivity. This is the story of that choice. This is the quiet rebellion against the tyranny of scheduled joy. And it is, in its own subtle way, a profound statement about what it means to find meaning not in a single day of external validation, but in the quiet, consistent act of living itself. Let's start where the story truly begins. Not in adulthood, but in the faded memories of childhood birthdays. For the person who now treats the day as normal, the shift didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, subtle conditioning, a series of emotional lessons that taught a young mind a dangerous equation. Anticipation equals potential pain. Think of the child who waits by the window for guests who arrive late, or not at all. The child whose parents argue through the party, whose gift is a stand-in for the presents they truly craved, or whose special day is overshadowed by a sibling's needs or a family crisis. In these moments, something fragile within the child cracks. The pure, unadulterated joy of being the center of a loving universe becomes tinged with anxiety, with a hyper-awareness that the world does not, in fact, stop for you. This is the birthplace of a specific kind of emotional intelligence, one that prioritizes emotional safety over exuberance. The child's brain, a brilliant and adaptive organ, begins to rewire itself. It learns that to hope loudly is to risk a deafening silence. It learns that to expect a perfect day is to invite the chaos of reality. So, it does what it must to survive. It lowers the bar. It preemptively dismisses the importance of the event. This isn't cynicism. It's a survival mechanism. Psychologists call this emotional self-regulation, but in practice, it feels like building a fortress around your heart. You learn to say, "I don't care about a big party," before anyone can forget to invite you. You learn to say, "Presents aren't important," before you can be disappointed by the wrong one. You master the art of deflecting attention to protect the tender, hopeful child that still lives inside you, the one who remembers what it felt like to be let down. This conditioning extends into adolescence and early adulthood. Perhaps you were the reliable one, the strong friend, the one who always planned the surprises for others, but found that no one reciprocated with the same fervor. Your birthday becomes a silent test, one you never consciously set, but one your psyche grades ruthlessly. Who remembers without a Facebook reminder? Who calls without being prompted? Who sees you, truly sees you, beyond the curated performance of your daily life? And when the results of that test inevitably fall short of the secret, hidden hope, the fortress walls grow thicker. The narrative solidifies. It's easier this way. It's less complicated. I prefer it quiet. You trade the roller coaster of potential joy and certain disappointment for the flat, stable line of emotional neutrality. It's a trade born not of a lack of desire, but from an excess of experience. The tragedy, of course, is that this brilliant coping strategy comes with a hidden cost. In learning to shield yourself from disappointment, you inadvertently build a resistance to joy. The heart that refuses to hope for celebration finds it harder to access spontaneous delight. The neural pathways that once lit up with anticipation are slowly pruned back, making it increasingly difficult to feel the thrill you once could. The day becomes a minefield of subtle triggers. A well-meaning but generic text message can feel like a painful reminder of superficial connection, while silence from a loved one can confirm your deepest unspoken belief that you are ultimately forgettable. This is the invisible grief of the uncelebrated birthday, the grief for the person you once were, who believed in the magic of the day, and for the connection you still, quietly, desperately wish for, but have trained yourself not to need. The birthday becomes not a celebration of life, but a memorial for a specific kind of innocence, the innocence that believed you were inherently worth making a fuss over. Now, let's examine the intricate control mechanism that this behavior represents. When someone declares their birthday just another day, what they are often asserting is a profound form of agency over their own emotional landscape. In a world that demands performance, the smiling photo with the cake, the grateful post for all the wishes, the curated evidence of a life well lived, choosing invisibility is a radical act of self-definition. It is a way of saying, "You do not get to dictate the terms of my joy. You do not get to schedule my vulnerability." This is the core of the psychology, a reclamation of power. If I do not celebrate, I cannot be disappointed. If I do not ask for attention, I cannot be ignored. If I make the day meaningless, then no one else can give it a meaning that hurts me. This is deeply intertwined with the concept of the internal locus of control. A person with a strong internal locus believes that their emotional state is their own responsibility, governed by their own choices and actions. By rejecting the external validation of a birthday, they are placing their sense of worth entirely within their own hands. They are choosing the stability of self-containment over the volatile dependency on others' actions. The birthday, with its inherent demand for external acknowledgement, becomes a threat to that hard-won internal stability. The quiet day, the normal routine, the lack of fuss. These are not signs of an empty life, but the pillars of a carefully constructed emotional fortress where the self is the only ruler, and the rules are designed to prevent invasion by disappointment. But this control, like all fortresses, can become a prison. The very act of refusing to be vulnerable, of refusing to need anything from anyone, can morph into a profound isolation. It reinforces a narrative of hyper-independence that whispers, "You are alone in this world, and that is for the best." This can create a tragic loop in relationships. You train people to not make a fuss, and then you are quietly heartbroken when they listen. You present a facade of unwavering strength, and then you wonder why no one ever thinks to check if you're crumbling underneath. The resentment that can build is subtle and insidious. It's not the loud anger of a broken promise, but the quiet ache of an unmet, unspoken hope. You become the architect of your own emotional loneliness, all in the name of self-protection. This dynamic is a classic feature of an avoidant attachment style, forged in environments where care was inconsistent or conditional. The child learns that needing others is risky, that expressing desire is dangerous. The adult then carries this forward, preemptively rejecting the very care they crave, ensuring they are never again in the powerless position of waiting for it. The birthday becomes the annual test site for this lifelong strategy. To allow celebration would be to admit a need. To admit a need would be to risk the foundational pain of their childhood. So, they hold the line. They maintain control. They treat it like a normal day, and they master the art of convincing everyone, including themselves, that they mean it. The ultimate act of control is to make your own longing invisible, even to yourself. Beneath the surface of control and the history of disappointment lies a deeper, more existential layer: the birthday as a mirror of the self. For the adult who has lived a few decades, a birthday is rarely just about getting older. It is a temporal landmark, a forced pit stop on the highway of life, where you are compelled to look in the rearview mirror and assess the distance traveled. This triggers a psychological phenomenon known as temporal self-awareness. It is the moment you confront the gap, often a chasm, between the person you hoped you'd become and the person you actually are. The birthday ceases to be a party and becomes a personal audit. This audit is rarely comfortable. It asks difficult, unspoken questions. Am I where I thought I would be? Have I used this past year well? Do I like the life I've built? When the answers to these questions are ambiguous or tinged with regret, the birthday becomes a day of quiet confrontation, not celebration. The thought of surrounding oneself with cheering people and festive noise can feel dissonant, even dishonest. It feels like celebrating a manuscript that is still full of plot holes and unfinished chapters. The person who treats the day as normal is often the one who is deeply engaged in this internal work. The lack of external fanfare is not an absence of marking the day, but a different, more solemn way of honoring it through introspection. This is where the psychology shifts from self-protection to a search for authentic meaning. The performative joy of a traditional birthday, the obligatory gathering, the pressure to beam with gratitude, can feel utterly alien to someone who is internally processing grief, career stagnation, a failed relationship, or simply the slow, sobering realization of their own mortality. To plaster a smile on that day would be a betrayal of their inner truth. The normal day is therefore a sanctuary of congruence. It is a day where their outer actions, going to work, making dinner, being quiet, finally align with their inner reality, contemplative, uncertain, grieving, searching. They are refusing to perform wellness for an audience. In this light, the behavior is not a deficit of spirit, but an overflow of sincerity. It is a commitment to feeling what is real rather than what is expected. The celebration they have moved away from is the kind that is loud, fleeting, and external. The celebration they are moving toward, often without even knowing it, is one of integration. It is the quiet acknowledgement of survival. It is the private toast to the battles fought in the silent chambers of the heart over the past 12 months. This is a celebration that doesn't need witnesses. It is the profound understanding that some of the most important growth, the healing of old wounds, the slow cultivation of self-compassion, the weathering of a silent storm, happens invisibly. To throw a party for that would be to miss the point entirely. The real milestone is not the passing of a year, but the internal shifts that occurred within it, and those are not always cause for confetti. Sometimes they are cause for a long, quiet walk, a moment of stillness and a deep conscious breath, a silent acknowledgement that you are still here, still trying, and that in itself is a monumental achievement. So, where does this leave the person who navigates their birthday in the quiet lanes of normalcy? It leaves them in a place of nuanced strength, bearing the weight of a profound understanding. This is not a path that needs to be fixed or a sadness that needs to be cheered away. It is a valid, intelligent, and deeply personal response to the complexities of existence and the history of one's own heart. The goal is not to force this person into a party hat, but to understand the language they are speaking, a language of controlled vulnerability, of silent introspection, and of self-preserved peace. The healing, if it is to be called that, lies not in regaining a lost childhood excitement, but in integrating the wisdom of the adult experience with the quiet needs of the inner child. It involves a gentle dialogue with the self. It means asking, on that normal day, what would feel truly nourishing to me right now? Not what should I do, but what do I need? The answer is never a loud party. It might be a perfectly brewed cup of tea, a long walk in the woods, a phone call with the one person who truly gets it, or the permission to do absolutely nothing without guilt. It is about moving from a defensive, I don't care, to an empowered, I care deeply, but I will define the terms. This is also a call for softness, both from the self and from those who love this person. You can hold your fortress and still lower the drawbridge for the right people. You can maintain your control and still whisper, "It would be nice if you remembered." The bravest thing a person who treats their birthday as normal can do is to slowly, cautiously, allow in a small gesture of genuine love, not the generic social media post, but the specific personal acknowledgement, the handwritten note, the favorite dessert delivered without fanfare, the simple, "I'm glad you were born," spoken with eye contact. These small, sincere acts can begin to rewire the old associations, not by being a grandiose celebration, but by being a quiet, consistent proof of love that doesn't require a performance in return. And for those on the outside, understand that the greatest gift you can give is not a surprise party, but the gift of being seen on their terms. It is respecting their quiet day while simultaneously communicating that you see the profound individual within it. It is understanding that their normal day is not an empty one, but one that is full of a different kind of meaning, a meaning woven from introspection, resilience, and the hard-won battle to define their own worth outside of anyone else's calendar. Their quiet birthday is not a rejection of joy, but a testament to a different kind of celebration, the silent, steadfast, and deeply personal celebration of a self that has learned to endure, to understand, and to find a peace that is entirely its own. That is a milestone worth honoring in the quietest way possible.